Like-Ike, Trump moves towards mass deportation of millions of illegal aliens as Mexico cracks down. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about President Trump and former President Dwight D. Eisenhower. President Trump is moving towards mass deportation to deal with the illegal immigration problem. He's taking a page from the playbook of Dwight D. Eisenhower, who undertook a similar effort back in the mid-1950s. On Twitter, Trump made this announcement that, quote, this was on June 17, quote, next week, ICE will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. They'll be removed as fast as they come in. Mexico, using their strong immigration laws, is doing a very good job of stopping people long before they get to our southern border. Guatemala is getting ready to sign a safe third agreement. The only ones who won't do anything are the Democrats in Congress. They must vote to get rid of the loopholes and fix asylum. If so, border crisis will end quickly. So President Trump making this announcement. A little context has come via the Wall Street Journal reporting, quote, an administration official said Mr. Trump was referring to a specific subset of people who had been issued final orders to leave. Quote, there are more than 1 million illegal aliens who have been issued final deportation orders by federal judges, yet remain at large in the country. These judicial removal orders were secured at great time and expense, the administration official said Monday. Quote, enforcing these final judicial orders is a top priority for immigration and customs enforcement. Now, the administration pointed to data from the National Immigration Court docket showing 1.1 million people with final removal orders, of whom 14,000 were detained and 1.07 million were not. An additional 2.1 million people were described in the data as having final pending orders. So that's the millions of people President Trump is talking about. But he also says that they'll be removed as fast as they come in. And here he seems to be talking about those who are being apprehended on the southern border, where it was 144,000 in May. That had accelerated from 109,000 in April, 103,000 in March, 76,000 in February. Usually it's only like 40, 50,000 a month. So it's clearly this migrant caravan of people fleeing the drought in Central America. They're clearly on their way to the United States, and the numbers are just surging. So President Trump has now entered into a joint declaration with Mexico to crack down on illegal immigration. And if you go to the text of this agreement, it says that, quote, Mexico will take unprecedented steps to increase enforcement to curb irregular migration, to include the deployment of its National Guard throughout Mexico, given priority to its southern border. Mexico is also taking decisive action to dismantle human smuggling and trafficking organizations, as well as their illicit financial and transportation networks. They're also going to be upping the migrant protection protocols as part of the agreement. Quote, those crossing the U.S. southern border to seek asylum will rapidly be returned to Mexico, where they may await the adjudication of their asylum claims. Mexico will authorize the entrance of all those individuals for humanitarian reasons in compliance with their international obligations while they await the adjudication of their asylum claims. So President Trump here seems to be referencing this part of the agreement where people, as soon as they're apprehended, if they claim asylum, they're going straight back to Mexico as part of the U.S.-Mexico joint declaration that was signed on June 7th. Okay, so there's the context. We're talking about those final removal orders and also those asylum seekers who are being apprehended in real time. So President Trump, President Trump is here he's making good on a promise he made back in 2015 when he was running for president with the GOP nomination. This was a November 2015 debate. And in it, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush criticized President Trump's plan. He said, quote, 12 million illegal immigrants, to send them back 500,000 a month is just not possible. And he was referring, Trump had mentioned this. He said, quote, let me tell you that Dwight Eisenhower, good president, great president, people liked him. I like Ike, right? The expression I like Ike moved 1.5 million illegal immigrants out of this country. So here he's talking about the 1954 Eisenhower deportation program that came in border states. It came after more than 1 million estimated migrant workers had crossed into the U.S. illegally during the prior decade under the U.S.-Mexico Bracero guest worker program. Now, when you look at the history of that operation, this is from the Texas Historical State Association in a 2010 article by Fred Koestler. And he references the forces that were used were actually relatively small. There was not this mass deportation force. In fact, quote, the forces used by the government were actually relatively small, perhaps no more than 700 men, but were exaggerated by Border Patrol officials who hoped to scare unauthorized workers into flight back to Mexico. And so there appears to have been a bit of propaganda, if you will, to convince those who were here illegally that it was not worth the effort of being deported, that it would be quicker and easier to go home on their own. And so this is kind of the idea of self-deportation. And then when you look at the numbers, there was actually, according to this Koestler article, there was about 80,000 apprehensions in all of Texas, outside of El Paso and Trans-Pecos. But notes the article, quote, it is difficult to estimate the number of people forced to leave by the operation. The INS claimed as many as 1.3 million, though the number officially apprehended did not come anywhere near this total. The INS estimate rested on the claim that most undocumented immigrants fearing apprehension by the government had voluntarily repatriated themselves long before and during the operation, or before and during the operation. So the same thing might be happening here with the Trump plan. There is a major crackdown now taking place on both sides of the border. And so there is, and there's also some evidence that as President Trump came into office, the number of voluntary departures has actually risen, according to Justice Department data compiled by the Marshall Project and GitHub. So if you look at the numbers here, you can see that beginning in 2017, the number of voluntary departures has risen significantly. And I would expect to see that number rising even further as the crackdown now takes place in both the U.S. and Mexico. So the number of voluntary departures has risen to almost 30,000 in 2018. That's up from about 14,000 in 2017, which is up from about 8,500 in 2016. So as President Trump came into office, that means that people anticipated that Trump would be stepping up in immigration enforcement, and so a lot of people are voluntarily leaving. Now, a piece from Politico notes that why this might be happening. Why would people leave voluntarily? What if they don't get caught? Maybe they should just wait it out and hope that they don't get caught. Well, according to the Politico article, quote, under immigration law, voluntary departure is considered a kind of privilege. If you are deported, you have to wait years to apply for a visa to re-enter the United States. But those who leave voluntarily don't have the same wait. So if you go on your own, if you're not deported, then that possibly leaves the possibility that you might be able to return at a later date, perhaps legally. And so President Trump's operations now, where they're going to do this major crackdown in conjunction with Mexico on both sides of the border, could potentially result in more voluntary departures. And that means the problem could perhaps take care of itself just by stepping up enforcement. How about that? You don't even have to you don't have to deport millions of people. They could leave all by themselves. And that was certainly the experience in the Eisenhower program in the mid-1950s, where even though only 80,000 were officially apprehended, more than or about 1.3 million may have actually left. So that shows what enforcement can do as a deterrence factor. and why President Trump was referencing Eisenhower in 2015 when he began running for president. We think this is, the laws need to be enforced. Trump promised to secure the border, and this is obviously a part of that effort. And there's going to be a lot of controversy that surrounds this. Where it was controversial when Trump began running for office, and I'll leave you with the closing here. Only time will tell if the current crackdown is effective as the administration monitors the numbers of individuals making it across the border and how many apprehensions from Customs and Border Patrol occur as the new U.S.-Mexico agreement is enforced. But like Ike, Trump is giving it a shot and fulfilling his promise to get the border under control. It's certainly more than his opponents, hint, hint, Jeb Bush, would have done. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government. DailyTorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a great day.